reason why I'm posting this video is because this is a question that has been bothering me for such a really long time now, and for whatever reason, I just can't seem to get this question out of my head, and just so I figured I might as well bring this up and for anyone who cares to listen or to watch and see what your guys' opinion on the matter is. I want to ask a question about what is considered canon. For those of you who are not really familiar with that term canon, basically take a franchise like Star Trek or Star Wars. Now, let's take a look at Star Wars. What do you have for Star Wars? Well, currently right now you have the main 7 films, Rogue One, but that's not all, is it? You got like encyclopedia books on the universe of Star Wars. You got all these novels and comic books, video games, I'm sure, about Star Wars. These little strips of stories, online stories. They could be considered fan fiction, but for all intents and purposes, if the films were to borrow elements from these novels, or if the novels were to borrow elements from the films, arguments could be made that other sources of media other than the main films themselves, they could be considered canon. Let's say there was let's say there was a movie, right? Let's say Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, right? And let's say, for the sake of argument, everyone thinks that movie, all people who've seen that movie 100% agree is a total piece of okay? For the sake of argument, everyone agrees. I'm guessing everyone does agree, but I'm guessing there are some people out there who think the movies are just okay, but they have problems. So for the sake of argument, let's say 100% agree that Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is a complete total piece of shit, but a novelization of the movie itself is released, a book, and the book helps explain the plot holes of the movie. Would this novelization of the movie be considered canon? I'm asking because it does help fill in the plot holes. Okay, for let's say another example. Let's say you're watching the Harry Potter movies, right? Let's say you've never read the books, and let's just say you've just watched the movies, okay? Now, let's say you get into Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, and you see Harry with this piece of mirror. This mirror that can show you someone who's looking at you. And I think in Part 2 of that movie, we figure out that it is Albus Dumbledore's brother, I believe. In the movies, they introduce this mirror, but they don't explain how Harry came into possession of this mirror until I think Part 2 of Deathly Hallows. And I think it's like a very vague explanation. But in the books, they explain it a little bit more in depth and detail. So would the information from the books be considered canon with the universe of the movies? Because they are separate universes. Because sometimes events in the movies are somewhat different than what occurs in the books. For example, I'm pretty sure in the books it was Crabbe who died and Goyle and Draco survived the fire in the Room of Requirements. But in the movie, it is Goyle who dies and it's Draco and some random guy who survived the fire in the Room of Requirements. Does that little change of information negate the fact that some information from the books can help further explain more plot details in the movie? This is why I'm bringing it up, because it is... You try to question what's considered canon, and what's even harder is where you have different versions of the movies, and you question which version is considered canon. Take the Halloween franchise, for example. The 6th entry in the Halloween franchise is called Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. There are 2 different versions of this film. There's the theatrical cut that most people know, and they consider it to be one of the weirdest entries, and it's confusing. And then there's the producer's cut version, but didn't get an official release until about a year or 2 ago, and they considered it the unrated producer's cut, which is ironic considering it has less gore than the actual theatrical cut does. So now you have 2 separate versions of the 6th entry of a franchise. You got the theatrical cut, which makes less sense an alternate third act and a higher body count. But then you got the producer's cut, which has more logic and reasoning, and it may have a very stupid third act ending, but at least the film's consistent and it makes sense, and it's not that gory in comparison with the tone with the rest of the franchise. And then you start questioning, well, which version is canon? Maybe I should see the film that takes place afterwards, and let's see which version they will consider canon. You try to do that with Halloween, but the thing is, after the sixth entry, the producers of this franchise decide, you know what, let's just skip entries 3, 4, 5, and 6, and let's just say H2O, the 7th entry, just takes place after part 2. What the fruit? Like, let's say if we wanted to bridge the gap between Halloween 6 and Halloween 7, H2O, 20 years later. Which version of Halloween 6 would we make canon if we wanted to merge all the timelines together? Would it be the producer's cut, which has a less body count but a more coherent plot? Or would it be the theatrical cut, which has a less coherent plot, a higher body count, and a really up third act that makes no sense with the rest of the movie? Not too many people take what is considered canon into account when they do like multiple different levels of sequels and prequels. I mean, for example, John Carpenter's The Thing, released in 1982. That was just one film, and it was a remake. In 2002, they made a video game called The Thing, and it acted as a sequel to the movie. And I believe John Carpenter himself considered the video game to be canon with the original film, and considered it to be a proper sequel. So literally, if you want to see a sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing, all you had to do is go find the video game on the PlayStation and play that. But then you got the prequel / reboot that came out in 2011, starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead. It acts as a prequel, but the events of that movie kind of alter and somewhat negate. So which one's considered canon? Would the video game be considered canon and the prequel movie just be considered non-canon? Or would both films just be considered canon and this video game is considered not canon because it's not a film? And if you're not following me still, here's a good example, one that most people are familiar with. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. You have the theatrical cut, which is 2.5 hours long, and many consider it to be inferior because some of the plot doesn't make any sense. And then you got the Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice Ultimate Cut, which is a half hour or a little bit longer, and the overall running time is over 3 hours long. And it adds more scenes of exposition and clears up why some of the plot in the theatrical version make less sense. So could the argument be made that the canon version for the DC Cinematic Universe, would the canon version be the theatrical cut that everyone saw in theaters, or would the canon version be the Ultimate Edition that got released onto a DVD? I think most people would say it would be the one everyone saw in theaters, the theatrical cut, because more than likely the version people are going to see is the version they see in the theaters. So why would you make the version of the movie that is canon and mixes well with the rest of the series and the franchise? Why would you pick the alternate version that probably less people see? Like, supposedly now there's an alternate cut of Suicide Squad. Let's say it gets released as DVD and considered the unrated version or the Ultimate Edition, and let's say it's a little bit longer, and let's say the order and sequence of events that occur in that movie are presented differently with the Ultimate Edition. Would that Ultimate Edition be considered canon with the rest of the franchise? Or would the theatrical one that everyone saw in theaters, the one that most critics hated, would that be the one considered canon? I mean, it would depend on if the different version does anything to alter the plot. I guess canon is just how you interpret it, but is there like an official canon that can be made up specifically for people who are big fans of franchises? Especially with like Star Wars. Do you understand how complicated the canon for Star Wars is? I mean, can we get this for franchises like Halloween? Can we get this for the DC cinematic universe? Can we get this? Or is it just the long, complicated series like Star Trek and Star Wars that get this treatment? Is there truly one ultimate canon version that people have to see when following the franchise, or is it all just interpretive on how you view it? Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen. If you have anything you would like to comment on the situation, go ahead and leave it down below if you want. If not, okay, whatever. Stay tuned.